Boxing King Media here with Dominic Ingle for episode 10. Dom, we made double figures, nearly 300,000 plus views, I think, on the podcast so far in 10 episodes.
Very good.
It's been a successful start to this series, so appreciate your time. As always, change of scenery today. We're at the BYD, Build Your Dreams, the electric car manufacturer, and I think you've had, a few weeks with your electric car?
Yeah, for 2 weeks. Very smooth. I'm impressed. Just brought it in today for a valet. Clean it up, keep on top of it. So yeah, it's impressed me so far.
I'm just curious, one of the things that people have got a misconception about is that it costs a lot to fill them up, and I understand you charged it to 300 plus miles, and it was what, £19?
Yeah, about 20 quid eventually when it came through the calculation. So, but it does a pre-charge on the card and then works it out and deducts the amount. So yeah, but I'm new to it also. I've been putting petrol and diesel in cars for the last 40 years. So yeah, it makes a change when you just have to plug it in and leave it, have a coffee, get parked in at Costa, let it charge, just under an hour. Bit of work on the phone, then you're off, aren't you, for another couple of days before the recharge.
Yeah, it's pretty decent, that. And what about the speed? I know it's like nearly 400 brake horse. So
it's fast, but I don't, it'll do 0 to 70 in about 3 seconds, but I don't like travelling fast. But every now and again, you put it on the boost, on the sport mode, and it just takes off. But the economy mode is fine for me, perfect.
Though obviously the showroom in Sheffield, I know a lot of our listeners are from Sheffield, so if you come down and just mention Boxing King Media, Dominic Ingle plug, they'll sort you out a good deal. At least have a test drive of one of these cars. Let's jump into the boxing, Dom. 5v5 just went down. I'm gonna fly through the fights because there's a lot of fights, 5 fights. But a week before we did some predictions, got you to predict the fights. So I'll start with Willie Hutchinson versus Craig Richards. You picked Willie Hutchinson to win on points. And I don't think anyone picked Willie to win, and most people expected Craig to stop Willie in the middle rounds.
Well, I would have thought on previous form and the levels that Craig Richards has fought at, you would have thought that he was the favourite in that fight. But people just don't understand this about Willie Hutchinson. He's not really boxed anybody fantastic in the last couple of fights, but he's been consistent in what he's done. And he's very deceptive. Willie Hutchinson punches very, very, very hard. I don't think he's really had chance to show, even in that fight against Richards, he's only shown, I think, about 60% of what he's capable of. And I'll say this now because it's a few years ago. I once had him down at the EIS in Sheffield sparring Boatse, and they were two very, very good competitive spars, which is going to make it more interesting now because apparently they've been nominated to fight each other for an interim WBO title, I think. So that'll be interesting. But Willie's just coming into his own now. He's been through a lot of personal stuff over the last couple of years, and he's finding his form. He's settled, and he's going to be definitely one to watch. So over the moon that he won. I knew it was going to be a tough fight for him, but in my heart of hearts, I was thinking, I just hope he pulls through this, boxes to the best of his ability, relaxes, doesn't go out, crash bang wallop, trying to have a punch up with this guy, and box smart, and he'll beat him, and he did.
An interesting viewpoint on this fight. In fact, before I talk about the aftermath, in the fight we get to deal with some stuff. He was accused of making certain comments, and people misinterpreted him, and it was made a bit of a thing on Twitter. But it was kind of rectified because the full video went out. He used the word bumbleclot against Craig Richards, and Craig felt that it was like an insult on his background. But obviously, I spoke to him afterwards. He didn't really want to talk about it on camera, but he just said that it was a side distraction for him in the build-up because he was worried about people labelling him such as that. But I don't know if you want to share.
No, he's not like that. But listen, travellers get. He's a traveller, Willie, and they get a lot of stick themselves, don't they? So he's well used to that. But he's not that type of kid. When he was in the gym, he was alongside Ivan Garbu, Kell Brook, a whole host of different people. There's not a bad bone. He's actually a nice kid. You won't actually think he was a fighter, to be honest. He's too nice, but he can switch and he can fight. But he's not got any malice in him. A very, very one of the most respectful boxers I've actually ever dealt with.
Craig Richards, we've seen him operate at top level. He gave Dimitri Bivol a really good fight. He gave Boatse a really good fight, and there wasn't a lot separating him in the scorecards. But obviously, the points this time were quite wide. One judge had it 119, 109 to Willie. Is it a case of, because people have got different opinions saying that Craig looked flat, maybe he wasn't at his best, or was Willie just that good?
No, I think it's a case of, look, Craig Richards is, 30? Around about
34, I think.
Yeah. Willie's a young kid. Willie's about 26 now, I think, maybe 25. It's difficult when you're fighting kids around your own age. Bivens in his 30s, I think. So is Buatsi. It's a different. You've got a different engine when you're younger. And Willie Hutchinson now is finding his form, and keeping a young kid off you is very, very difficult. And I think that's what Craig found difficult. The pace. Willie was very slippery switching. He's a very difficult fighter to hit. He could switch before he came to my gym, but he developed it better. You know, in the environment when I trained him, he brought everything into play. He drew on all his resources, and he's got that youth and he's got that ambition. And you know, when he got beat for the British title at 12 stone, the top and bottom of that is he should never have been boxing at super middleweight. He's a light heavyweight. That's what he is, and he's never looked back since going back to the weight. So I think it's just Willie's time. You know, Craig's had a decent career, being in the top level, being a bit of a gatekeeper. Caused a lot of people problems and got through got through fights with some decent opponents, some good opponents, and survived. So you know, it's Willie's time now, and hopefully now we can capitalise on that win in Saudi. And I think, like I say, his next fight might be Buatsi. That'll be a very interesting fight.
What about people blaming Shane McGuigan? Because we've seen people get praise, and then when you have a fighter that loses,
nothing to do with Shane McGuigan. Look, when you get in that ring, it's down to the fighter. Craig Richards has operated at the high level. You know, whoever he trained with before, I think it was Sims. Tony Sims, or I think at one time even Tony Sims' brother trained him. So it's nothing to do with Shane McGuigan. You can only deal with what you've got, you know, and sometimes you need more than one camp to get a fighter right. So, you know, Craig Richards, realistically on paper and his rated above Willie, he should have had, you know, he's boxed a higher level calibre of opponent. He should have had it in him to beat Willie Hutchinson, but I just don't think Willie was going to be beat on that night. He's had his chance, you know, he's sat patiently, waited. He's built quietly in the background, and realistically, I think they've kind of thrown him in at the deep end to see what he's got, and he's come out on top.
Last thing on that fight, before the fight, they shook hands on a bet. Winner gets the loser's purse. But I saw Willie did an interview after the fight, and he said, "I'm not about that."
Nah, Willie's not. Listen, Willie's not interested in anybody else's money. He's interested about his moving forward in boxing and proving what he can do. And he can fight. He can fight, and we're going to see that in the next couple of fights. What are coming up for him?
Raymond Ford, Nick Ball, you predicted a close fight, but you said Raymond Ford would edge it on points, and I think most people's opinion, either guy could have won. Raymond Ford got the decision. Any thoughts on that? Sorry, you picked Raymond Ford to win, but Nick Ball got the decision.
Nick Ball got it, and you know, I just thought he had a good fight last time. I thought it was very hard done to in his last fight, Nick Ball. I just thought it might have knocked the stuffing out of him for this one, because Raymond Ford is a good fighter. And, you know, he wasn't going to be denied, Nick Ball. He put his heart and soul into it. He's like a machine coming forward. He was like a steamroller. He was relentless. And it paid off, and I'm glad he got the result. You know, it's always great to see the Brits win, and especially a world title. So fair play to him. Over the moon for him. I'm glad he won. And, you know, he's going to be in some exciting fights.
Next one, you picked Hamza Sheeraz to win by a late stoppage, and it was around 11 stoppage, I think it was. Brilliant fight. You know, Amo had good moments. Hamza, you know, rode the early storm. I think he got hurt in round 2, and then ended up closing the show. What do you make of that?
Hamza can punch. I'm not saying he's the best boxer. He's got a lot of determination. He's tall, he's range, he's got the height and the reach. Amo's a bit shorter, southpaw awkward. That's always going to cause problems for a fighter in the first couple of rounds. And I think, you know, he took some good shots as well, Hamza. Got rocked a few times. And, you know, when you're in that situation, when you're in world title fights, it's like a life and death situation. It's like you can't be having another go at it. If it's there and then, you've got to do it. And he weathered the storm. He came through, and he's always got that punch power. And he finished Amo off. He started to fatigue quite rapidly, Amo, second half of the fight. And then Sheeraz just kind of piled it on. Got caught himself a few times, but he held his nerve, you know, kept his chin steady and finished the job.
Rumours of Hamza versus Chris Eubank Jr. Is that a right fight for Chris or Hamza? What do you think?
It could be. You just don't know with the last performances of Chris Eubank. They've been a bit flaky, haven't they? And I know he beat Liam last time, but, you know, he wasn't, I don't think, a top flight Liam Smith. So it's a fight. Look, if you're gonna, it's kind of like the new kids coming through against the kids who've been around. Eubank's been around a while, hasn't he? And, you know, he hasn't boxed for a while, and we're looking for something, you know, to set the scene alight, and that would be a good fight. And, you know, it would be a step up fight for Hamza in one respect, but he should have the tools, and he should be, you know, where he needs to be now. He should have everything in place to be able to beat Chris Eubanks if he's the fighter that he says he is.
A last question on that fight. Hamza and Amr both had previously had wins that people used to debate and say, oh, he was past it or he wasn't that good, etc. So teeing off against each other, two young undefeated fighters, did that kind of show maybe how good Hamza Sheeraz is and he's got a good future ahead?
Look, you know, like I said before, I've had one of my guys in with him, Bradley Skeet, and it was an entertaining fight, and I think a bit of a steep learning curve for Hamza, and I think it made him realise that you've got to start relying on other stuff apart from power, and you've got to be on this game 24/7. Really, boxing, you've got a short period in it, and you've got to utilise it. So maybe the lesson he learned from that fight with Bradley Skeet has put him in good stead for the rest of it. So yeah, you know, the money's there. If the money's there, make the fights, and that's what's happened with this one.
Zile Zhang Wilder. I'm going to leave Dubois till the end. Zhang Wilder. You picked Zhang to win by stoppage, and he indeed did. What did you make of the finish?
Vicious stoppage. No, you know. Wilder turned his back and Zhang was straight in, hit him bang on the target from sideways on and slept him, you know. That's what you do. Boxing's a brutal game, and Zhang's, you know, an oldish fella, his time's not on his side. But I think there were signs of Wilder in the last fight against Parker. The decline was there, or the lack of motivation, or he's just not got any more. He had his moment at the top, he's shone for a period of time, and, you know, his world's come crashing down in the last two fights. And look, he's been a good fighter for the game, he's been exciting, you know, that power that he had and the people he was knocking out. But unfortunately his window now of success has closed, and it's probably time he packed up. He's got the money, hopefully. And I think I heard somebody, it might have been, I don't know who it was, somebody did an interview, might have been Lennox Lewis, saying, you know, enjoy your money. And that's what he should be doing. Like Lennox knows, he's been a successful heavyweight. Like, there's more to life than boxing when you've got other responsibilities. It's a dangerous game.
Two narratives for Wilder. One is people are saying Malik Scott ruined him. The other one is people are saying the Tyson Fury fights ruined him. Which one's more likely?
It could be a combination of a lot of things, but look, Malik Scott, I don't think was the best of boxers, you know, and that doesn't say he can't be a good trainer. And it's to do with the relationship between the trainer and the fighter. But it seems a bit too friendly, that relationship. And, you know, with heavyweights, or with any fighter, they've got to be told what to do. They can't be making up their own mind what they want to do. If you trust in your trainer's got to be calling the shots. It can't be this pat on the back and, you know, it's just a mate's run out or whatever. It's a serious game. And as a trainer, you know, obviously the years of training I've had, I've had close relationships with the fighters, but you've always got to stand back and realise what your job is. And when you know something's not right, you've got to tell that fighter. And when it's not in the best interest, you've got to tell them what they can't be doing and what they can be doing. It's not, you know, well, we're pals, we'll just get through it. It's like you've got to stand back, almost like a parent, and tell them, you know, and stuff a lot of the time what they don't want to hear. You can't be fluffing them up and, you know, buttering them up and, you know, being the pal. You know, you can't. You're different. You're not. You know, the boxers knock around together. I always say to, you know, people I've worked with, like Greg the nutritionist, we're kind of the management side. We're a different side to the fighters. You have to set yourself apart. You can't be in that group of friends. It's a professional relationship. You're here to get the best out of them. You can't be all pally. And sometimes you have to tell them. A lot of times you have to tell them a few hard truths, and maybe that's what Malik Scott hasn't done. You know, maybe after the last fight he should have said to Wilder, you know, you want to pack this in. But, you know, if the money's there and it's life-changing money that you can't turn down, well, you have to take it. But that's probably the last fight he should be taking for the money.
I was in the changing rooms like 2 hours after Wilder's fight. You know, for anyone that thinks he was just there to collect the money is wrong, because I heard him like shouting, probably crying. You know, he was really upset about it.
No, I don't think there's any question of him not going in to win the fight. There's no question of that whatsoever. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is sometimes as the fighter, you're the last person when you know you should be stopping. And, you know, that's a dangerous place to be, just to go in for the money. He didn't fight like he was trying to survive and just get through it. He was fighting like he was trying to win. Unfortunately, he got clipped with an awkward shot, throwing his backhand. Zhang's very good at that counter right hook from the southpaw. And when somebody's throwing it, I think Joyce was doing the same thing when he got caught, the same shot. And he'll see that shot coming, you know, forever and a day, because that's the shot you're going to try and hit a southpaw fighter with. And he just put his head down, countered him with the right hook, and sent Wilder sprawling. And before he regained his position, Zhang was on him, bang, that was it, done.
Should he retire or carry on?
He should pack up, really.
Okay. Last fight, Daniel Dubois. large majority of people picked Hrgovic to win this fight, but you, to my surprise, you picked Daniel Dubois to win by stoppage, and he indeed did. He put on an unbelievable performance. What did you make of this new version of Daniel Dubois?
Well, you know, he's been through a lot of tough times early on. You know, against Joyce, he was getting called a coward and bottling it because he's high, but it's probably the first time he'd ever been in that situation and wasn't aware what was going on and thought it was actually worse than it was. And I think when you've been in that position and had to go through what he's gone through and the people slagging him off online and whatever, he's had to regroup, hasn't he, and come back stronger. And he's done that. And, you know, to say he was getting the big build-up and then he got dropped from a great height, he's built himself back well. And he's been in some, you know, tricky situations. He's been stopped again. And, you know, he's come through that. So anybody who keeps going at it, and he's young, don't forget he's young, he's a bit more resilient, so he's got more time to play with. He's come through it, and eventually, you know, he's gone with Don Scholes. Maybe it's just a good relationship. He had a good control of Chisora, Don Scholes, an old school trainer, no nonsense, a lot of experience. Could be like a father figure to Dubois as well. And he's dealt with high level heavyweights. I'm not saying that Shane McGuigan wasn't good for Dubois, because I think he did well under Shane McGuigan, but I think Don, having that kind of experience of age and seeing it all and dealing with somebody an awkward character as Chisora, it's kind of worked in Dubois' favour, kind of a bit like, you know, the Gustamato kind of situation with Tyson, not as much, but a similar kind of thing where, you know, Don's not in it for the money. He's got money. He's in it now because he's trying to pass on his experience, and he's doing tremendously well under Don Scholes, isn't he?
I spoke to Don the day after the fight. He gave a real passionate speech about how he feels like he's never been given a fight with that kind of ability.
Yeah, no, he's made. Look, he got Chisora, and Chisora was an awkward character, and Don had to try and keep him in check, you know, and he did for a long period of time. But it's the same thing, you know, you can get low-level fighters and do your best with them, and then he's got, you know, Daniel Dubois, and, you know, he's got him when he's not unbeaten. You know, he's got him when he's had a few hiccups and a few defeats and, you know, some psychological damage coming into camps, and he's turned him around. So fair play to Don. That's not just through training people, that's with mind coaching, that's with experience, that's with stories. He'll probably tell him about when Derek Chisora was in this awkward position and when he was down and out, and this is what he did with, and he'll know the sequence to pull Daniel out of that and get him the confidence. So, you know, looking forward to the next one with Dubois, because he's definitely chucked himself back into contention.
So, as I said, there you got 4 out of the 5 right, which is quite rare because your predictions aren't always bang on, but you got the outcomes right as well.
Well, I think I said when we did that interview a couple of weeks back, I think I said it at the end of it, but don't quote me on any of these because I'm rubbish at predictions. And the reason I'm rubbish at predictions is because I only kind of make predictions on fights I'm interested in. And fighters I watch. I don't watch a lot of boxing. So, you know, when it comes to this 5v5, there were some interesting matchups in that, you know, fighters that do interest me, to be honest. So I had a look at them and I just thought, you know, especially with Dubois, you know, he's come through adversity, he's come through defeats. The other fella, he's had a perfect record. And people think, well, how can he lose? But sometimes when you're winning all the time, you do get a bit complacent. And Dubois got something to prove. And I think, they call him Hrgovic.
Yeah.
He came out quite confident, putting it on Dubois, thinking about clip him a few times, put him into his shell. You know, I'm bigger than him, I'm unbeaten, I'm a prospect, I'm right high up, I'll do him in. And then when Dubois started fighting back, you could see him kind of questioning himself. And like, you know, Dubois, you know, kept the pressure on, he didn't fold when Hrgovic probably expected him to fold. And he just kept piling it on, and I think it was cuts, was it, in the end?
Yep.
What did it? You know, and that's it. Fair play to Daniel for sticking in there.
Daniel's next assignment, it looks like it's not signed yet, but more than likely it will be Anthony Joshua at Wembley, September 21st, and he may well be for the full IBF world title.
That's an interesting fight.
Based on what you've seen on Daniel Dubois under Don Charles, Anthony Joshua under Ben Davison, we'll do a full breakdown if it happens, but just early on, who are you edging that towards?
Well, you know,
is it a closer fight than it was maybe a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think so, because like I said, Daniel's had more to come through and more to learn from, but so has Anthony Joshua. I think, you know, everybody's going to be thinking it's going to be Anthony Joshua, and you would expect that. But don't be surprised, because you know it's an all or nothing thing for Daniel. He's been through these low points before. He's suffered the defeats. He's suffered the humiliation of people seeing him as a quitter, and that does motivate you even more. So what has he got to lose really? It's a bonus getting this fight, and it'll be a big fight. It'll be a big payday, and you know when you're in that position when you've got nothing to lose, that's generally when you have your best fights, you know. So let's wait and see, and we'll see the build up to that, and we'll have a look at it, and we'll get closer to it, and we'll make a prediction.
Eddie Hearn lost to Frank Warren 10-0 on points.
10-0.
10-0. What do you think that does for ego and just general?
You know, it is what it is. I
It's
mean,
a 40-year rivalry, isn't it?
It is, but then again, if we look at the time that Frank's been in boxing, and we look at the time that Eddie, not Eddie's dad, you know, Frank again, he's got the experience of time, hasn't he? And you know, the fighters that they've got, there could be an argument saying, well, you know, I'm not surprised, because Frank, even now it's known that Frank will build his fighters till to the point where they've got to be put in a big fight. He does that with fighters. That's what he does. He's always done that. He's not one to commit a fighter earlier than he needs to be committed. If he sees an opportunity, and he's done it a few times when I had fighters. One was Ryan Rose against Paul Jones. He did that and it paid off. He sees that opportunity. Nazim Ahmed against Steve Robinson, who, let's not forget, came up from super bantam straight to featherweight and challenged for the featherweight title without even having any fights at featherweight. Frank saw that opportunity. Don't forget, Robinson was a mature man. A lot of people thought Robinson was going to beat Naz, but Frank looked at it and thought, it's a chance here. And it was a big gamble. He took it. So Frank will do that, but he's better known for building the fighters. Whereas Eddie will get the fighters in position, they'll give them all the hype, he'll have a couple of flash wins, and maybe Eddie's judgment is, they're ready for that big fight, and they don't win. I think Frank's got more patience over time. I think patience has worked well for Frank over time, where I think Eddie's a bit more ambitious, and probably more ambitious for his fighters in that sense, you know, thinks his fighters can do better, whereas Frank will always err on the side of caution, in my experience.
Last question. Johnny Nelson was sat in this seat 2 weeks ago, and he said to me that Tyson Fury won't take the rematch and will more than likely walk away from
well, I think, you know what, I think that's not a wrong assessment, because I think Johnny's probably Johnny's looking at it from a point where I sometimes look at fights and think, well, if I were in that position, what would I do? And I think Johnny looks and thinks, well, if I were Tyson Fury, all that money and what I've achieved, why take a risk? You've got a big family, you've got life to lead. You know, what you got to prove, do that. But, you know, obviously Tyson has took the rematch. And maybe, who knows, that Johnny's saying that as probably Tyson looked and thought, I'm not retiring. You know, Johnny Nelson thinks I'm going to retire, no chance. You know, maybe Johnny's double bluffed him. Maybe he listens to Johnny Nelson. He has sparred with Johnny Nelson a few times, to be honest. But, you know, the rematch is for December, so that's something to work towards. And, you know, there's going to be a big buzz in Riyadh again for that one.
Indeed. Are you going to go down again?
I think I will do, yeah. Christmas time, and just a couple of weeks in Dubai, and then go over there and watch it, because it was a good fight. And this time, I think with Tyson, I think he's got in his mind that he knows where he went wrong and thinks, well, I've only got to do this a little bit different and I'll have him. That's the motivation. I think the praise that Usyk's getting, that everybody's heaping on him, is really probably, you know, annoying Tyson, thinking, I could have won that fight. So we'll see.
And last thing I want to say, the shape, obviously yourself, not yourself, Greg Marriott got him in. I know you and Greg worked together. I'm going to put up the email address like I always do.
Yeah.
If anyone wants any diet and nutrition advice, hit up Dom, and you got Greg Marriott as well.
They've got to be quick, because it's getting busy for the summer. Everybody wants a six-pack. Everybody's getting shape for the beach, and do you know what? They want it yesterday. But they're going to have to be quick off the mark, because it's getting booked up. We're rushed off his feet for the summer season. So yeah, get your requesting early, because we're busy.
It's literally a month away, and if anyone can get you in shape in a month, it's probably you and Greg.
It is.
Right, Dominic Ingle, thank you for your time.
No problem.